the parallel universe where Bucky hadn't killed Howard Stark, genius billionaire, playboy and philanthropist Tony Stark hasn't inherited his father's military corporation, and instead of that began to develop computer technology. And as a result, by 2025, mobile phones became powerful enough to guide spacecrafts. And once upon a time, a discount version of Bill Gates, called James Holliday, bought a few such phones, connected them into a server, and made
the Oasis. It's a place where the limits of reality are your own imagination.
Where the players can do things for which in real life they would get a free accommodation in prison. And when in real life to play Oasis, one would need an NASA supercomputer, in this universe, it's enough to have a simple VR set, thanks to Tony Stark. And for full immersion, there are also haptic gloves and an omnidirectional treadmill, which, according to the logic of this movie, allows the player to fly and
climb Mount Everest with Batman.
Jesus.
And those having a premium account can somehow move and fight while sitting in a chair. And by 2040, the Oasis creator dies.
How did he die?
Bad diet, no exercise.
But he left the last will, according to which the company will be owned by any gamer who would have enough skill to find
Golden egg.
somewhere in Oasis.
Before I died, I created what we in the biz call an Easter egg. The first person to find the egg I've hidden somewhere inside the Oasis will inherit my stock in gregarious games, currently valued $500 billion worth.
Holy shit, how much?
And in order to obtain
Golden egg.
one must find 3 keys, and because of the absence of hints, it is as difficult as finding logic in this movie. And since Holiday has hid the keys as good as KFC hides their chicken recipe, after 5 years only one player managed to discover that the first key is given for winning the race, which usually ends by being eaten by Godzilla or Kong. But the race was never won by anybody, because Holiday set the difficulty at such level that even Dominic wouldn't be able to pass it. Because in any case, in the end, Kong turns every player into a hot dog. But the trick is in simply driving backwards, getting onto the map and reaching the finish line without any obstructions. And for some reason, such a simple puzzle hasn't been solved in 5 years. When even nowadays speedrunners are so inventive in bypassing the game structure that someone would have figured out checking the back wall in the very first day. And in this world, there is even a corporation led by a guy named Sorrento, who has an entire office of game analysts, but still nobody decided to check every inch of the map, including the back wall of the arena.
How the fuck did you get this job?
And the real players who are supposed to be intelligent, for 5 years have been trying to win the impossible race as if they were NPCs.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
But apparently it was like that, because Destiny already chose the guy who will have to endure the difficult burden of spending $500 billion.
Wade fucking Wilson.
No, just Wade. The guy who lives with his aunt in the slums and made a dystopian version of a treehouse, where he uses a couple of car batteries to power up his VR system.
He's a good guy.
And when Wade doesn't have enough money to even fuel his car,
Fuel's low.
instead of finding a job in Oasis, he joins the race again and again, knowing that he wouldn't be able to win it. The race where he can be killed and lose all his valuable items and a nice car. And even though because of his Need for Speed skills he can complete the race in a blindfold, in any case, in the end, Kong tells him,
Go fuck Shamu in the blow.
But even though he didn't finish the race, at least he got acquainted with the streamer Artemis, also known as Samantha, by preventing her from losing all of her items and going back to the first level. And immediately he didn't act like a wimp, as Peter Parker did with MJ, but found a way to have a chat with her.
Damn, I love that bike.
Oh, H. Well, he's my friend, but he could fix it for you.
Yeah, boy.
And realizing that he would have better chances with Artemis if he had a
Golden egg.
in his inventory, Wade buys a luck potion from Harry Potter, and in Holiday's Wikipedia he decides to watch exactly that video in which he has hidden the hint.
Why can't we go backwards for once? Backwards. Really fast. Fast as we can. Really put the pedal to the metal, you know?
You lucky son of a bitch.
And Wade immediately joins the race again, because for some reason Sorrento doesn't occupy all available slots with his players, so that nobody else would have a chance to find the key. And after waiting for the rest of the players to drive away and repeat the events of Jurassic Park movies, Wade,
I'm like fucking Dom Toretto.
engages reverse gear, goes under the textures, and like a speedrunner, finishes the race, and gets the first key from Holiday's avatar, as well as a hint for the second key, and 100,000 coins on his in-game bank account.
Try not to shit yourself.
And he immediately spends all this money in Diagon Alley, buying everything he sees, without thinking that he might need this money for buying something for looking for the second key.
20,000 for the holy hand grenade? That's a steal. Zemeckis cube. I need one of those.
Which tells me only one thing. There's too many self-indulgent wieners in this city with too much bloody money.
But instead of that, he buys grenades, a Zemeckis cube, and of course a fancy haptic suit for a more pleasant experience when he will be visiting locations for adults only.
Administer the testicle clamps!
Oh, yeah.
And since Samantha saw Wade going backwards during the race, she does the same and also gets the first key and the money. Wade also told Blade's daughter how to get the key, and she told her friends the same, and after that, the entire oasis would have got the first key and money, and billions of players who would have got 100,000 coins would cause a massive inflation, which would fuck up the game's economy, and the real world's economy as well, because as we see, it's possible to buy real world's items using the in-game money, but the genius game developer Holiday didn't think of that.
No more drugs for that man.
Meanwhile, Sorrento immediately shits his pants, realizing that some kid might become the head of the entire oasis, and orders the local gangster to cancel Wade.
You want him off the scoreboard.
But when the first key is already owned by a shit ton of players, for some reason he orders to cancel only Wade, instead of everyone with a key. And this doesn't make any sense, because Wade can easily pass the race and get the key again. Meanwhile, Artemis begins to hang around Wade, hoping that he would lead her to the second key. And of course, after visiting Wikipedia again, they find another hint.
You lucky son of a bitch.
Holiday tells that because of him being antisocial, he got scared on the first date and didn't kiss his
Personal brand of heroin.
And since his date's name is mentioned only once in the Wikipedia, the main guys immediately realize that this must mean something. And as a reward, the local version of Alfred gives Wade an extra life coin, which later is gonna be as useful as pain-relieving suppositories for Deadpool. Meanwhile, Artemis is even more convinced that Wade is an expert of Holiday's biography and invites him to the party.
You know the Distracted Globe?
Yeah, the dance club.
Meet me there. 10 p.m. There's something I want to show you.
Yeah, boy.
And Wade, thinking that after the dance he would get
Something valuable.
Oh, you mean sex?
Yeah.
dressed up nicely and didn't forget to take the most important thing.
Watermelon. Chicks dig it.
But in the club, the girl spoils everything and tells that she is interested only in finding the
Golden egg.
And she thought that the thing that Holiday hadn't had the guts to do was base jumping in the club, which he built for the girl he liked.
So Halliday built it for her.
But they never made it past the first date. So Halliday's the creator,
Who hates his own creation?
and the club is the thing he hates.
And a hidden key, a leap not taken?
But even though Wade and Artemis were dancing as if they were on America's Got Talent, they still didn't get the second key. And so that Wade wouldn't get upset that he got neither the key nor
Something valuable.
from Artemis, she gives him a massage, because smart Wade bought the costume specifically for this.
Can you feel this?
Oh, yeah.
And since all blood was transferred from Wade's brain into his goose, he began to act like a 14 years old who fell in love with the first girl who touched him.
I've been thinking, maybe it'd be cool if we met up in the real world. My name's Wade. I'm in love with you.
Well, and he didn't think that Artemis might live in Mongolia and be a 40 years old guy. Wade should have said this.
Honey, I don't know what you are. I mean, for all I know, you could be some big fat dude sitting in a stim chair with his dick hanging out.
And the gangster who is sitting nearby is happy that the boy smelled Artemis, lost the rest of his mind, and revealed his real name.
Well, Buckaroo blows it. Shocking.
But because Sorrento was raised by Lloyd and Harry, he's got a genius idea to destroy the club and cancel Wade right in the open, so that on the next day his company shares would fall through the ground, after the news that he orders to kill players who are trying to find
Golden egg.
when the gangster could headshot Wade quietly without endangering Sorrento's reputation, because Wade is dumb enough to walk in the streets wearing his own avatar and not even using a mask. But Sorrento, having millions, still gives his employees the cheapest guns that cannot damage the guy who lives in the slums. And they don't have any armor at all, so two regular players shoot all of them as if it was a tutorial mission.
Fucking hell. That was easy.
And when they encountered the gangster having a normal gun who shot Wade,
Right where the sun doesn't shine.
he uses Zemeckis cube, rewinds the time 1 minute back, and escapes with Artemis. And the most skilled mercenary for some reason didn't chase them. He just doesn't live up to his name.
I rock, old friend.
Artemis is also quite stupid. She began to scold Wade right in the club when Sorrento's people might show up any moment, because now it's a good time to tell that she is not a simple gamer but a revolutionary.
I'm doing this to stop IOI. I'm talking about real-world consequences. Actual life and death stuff. My dad died in a loyalty center.
She has a naive dream of defeating a scary evil capitalist, and the world will magically become better.
Can't argue that logic.
Meanwhile, the gangster decided to Google Wade.
I did a search for all the Wades who had recently bought an X1 boot suit. The real-world identity of Parzival is Wade Watts.
And instead of letting the gangster professionally do his job, which Sorrento has already paid him for, he ordered his personal John Wick lady to kill Wade in a more creative way.
A game decides our fate. The only question is how far are we willing to go to win it?
But at least before doing that, Sorrento had enough brain for once and offered Wade a job in his company. Wade agrees to have a chat and Sorrento makes an offer.
If you came to work at IOI, you'd also get your own penthouse apartment in Columbus with the highest speed connection. And then there's the salary. $4 million a year. And if you do happen to find that Easter egg, there's a bonus, $25 million.
And when 120% of people who live in the slums would have answered,
Yes!
Wade becomes a moralist because he doesn't like the company's policy of buying people and using them for in-game labor. So he refuses $4 million of salary and insults the guy for no reason.
I think you're full of shit.
Here's my offer. Your board of directors, you got them in the other ear. Why don't you tell them this? If they dump you, I'll consider it.
Apparently he thought that if he insults Sorrento, he would respect him more and let him find the
golden egg.
Someone should teach that motherfucker a lesson.
But Sorrento decides to teach Wade a lesson. What happens when a guy from the slums is being rude with the head of the company who has a lot of money and power.
All that's going on in the world, you really think that anyone's gonna give a damn about an explosion in some ghetto trash rat barn in Columbus?
And apparently Sorrento is a big fan of Michael Bay, because instead of hiring an assassin, he decided to blow up an entire building and bury dozens of people under it for no reason. Because in the world where even homeless people have a VR set, he believes that nobody would take a video of his drones installing explosives onto a building. And in 1 hour, that video would be on the YouTube main page, and in 2 hours, Sorrento would be already dropping soap in prison.
Ever have a 12-inch black dick in your ass?
Yeah, because there are some problems that require a physical solution.
But the John Wick lady apparently is not any smarter than Sorrento, because before blowing up a building, she didn't make sure that Wade was inside the building. So Wade only gets a cloud of dust into his face and the documents that he is now officially a homeless orphan. And right after the explosion, Artemis does Wade a favor. She sent a delivery guy who gives Wade a gentle neck massage and lets him have a nap. But for some reason, the delivery guy got carried away and he tied Wade to a chair and was brandishing a knife right in front of his face. And because of that, Wade shat his pants, and Artemis immediately smelled it.
Showers that way. Clean clothes too.
But most importantly for Wade, Artemis turned out to be good looking, instead of something like this. And after showing Wade his new workplace, the revolutionaries go to the cinema, where they randomly choose The Shining, in which they find a dance floor with Holliday's crush. And after Artemis did some kind of a TikTok dance with a girl, she gets the second key, and later the rest of the team get it as well.
Well. So you found my jade key.
And while the good guys were celebrating getting one step closer to being published in Forbes magazine, the delivery guy spoils everything, because he forgot that the corporation has access to the cameras, and while kidnapping Wade, he didn't even use a disguise method of Captain America. So John Wick lady immediately traced him back to the hideout and sent a team of debt collectors to arrest everyone and send to a digital gulag. But Artemis saves Wade and joins the dream job of paying off debts.
IOI has purchased and consolidated all of your outstanding debt, currently in excess of 23,000 credits. You will be remanded to the nearest IOI loyalty center until your debt is paid in full, including any interest, processing, or late fees you incur henceforth.
How did Artemis manage to become one of the best players of Oasis and still didn't earn $23,000 to pay off her debts? She claims to be fighting for justice, but doesn't even pay off her debts. But she somehow managed to find all Wade's friends, who thankfully live in the same city and not in Madagascar, New Zealand and Estonia.
Samantha got us a message. She told us to meet you here.
I can imagine how Wade, an 11-year-old kid, a teenager, and Blade's daughter are gonna fight off the armed collectors of a huge corporation.
You got the best crew in the world.
Absolutely fucking not.
And meanwhile, Sorrento's people already found the final quest, which is winning Holliday's favorite game, and the key itself is given for finding the Easter egg. But for the good guys, this becomes mission impossible, because Sorrento rigged the bridge leading to the castle with the explosives, and they sent Artemis to do the job so that she would be able to sabotage the entire mission. And just in case, Sorrento asked the gangster to set up an unbreakable shield over the castle.
The Orb of Ossivox. It creates an impenetrable magic shield that can only be taken down by a magic spell.
But no mission is impossible when there is a chance to get $500 billion. Wade somehow remembers the exact interior of Sorrento's office.
How much about Sorrento's rig do you remember?
Kind of everything.
And Blade's daughter makes a replica of the office, because apparently Wade also remembered the exact spacing of the walls and arrangement and intensity of lighting. And using Sorrenta's password that Wade saw last time, he hacks his account and transfers him into the fake office. And they're lucky that Sorrenta didn't log into Oasis in his underwear, but wearing the same costume as he did last time. And also he didn't think that it is impossible for two armed people to pass the security and get into his office. And since only Superman can argue with a gun, Sorrenta agrees to Wade's demands and gives the code to Artemis' cell, who already knows how to destroy the shield.
I heard one of the guards calling it the orb of Ozyvox, and the only way to take it down is from the inside.
I wonder what would Wade do if Sorrenta told him that he doesn't know in which cell Artemis was placed, because that is handled by the debt collection department, and not by the head of the company.
Where is she? I don't know.
Wade explains Artemis how to find the emergency exit lever, which of course is placed inside the cell. And after that, she takes Sorrenta's password from Wade in order to find the shield deactivation spell, and asks Wade to raise an army.
You need to raise an army.
Get to Planet Doom and wait for my signal.
Artemis doesn't have enough brains to realize that there is no point in going personally to Sorrenta's office and risk being caught when Wade is already logged into his account and he could find the spell by himself and send it to Artemis. And so that her brilliant plan wouldn't get screwed up by the fact that she cannot log into Sorrenta's account while he's sitting in a chair, he luckily notices that it's a fake office, thanks to Wade not giving a shit about caution and leaving the door open. And because of that, Sorrenta realizes,
It's a trap! This isn't real. You're tapping my feet.
Uh-oh. Guys.
And Sorrenta immediately gets the title,
An imbecile. Yeah. Like the dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
He leaves the office without changing the password, because the hackers are still logged in, and who knows what else they can do. But they didn't even go through his inventory, when Sorrenta has a lot of cool weapons, and they could have just taken them.
Because we didn't think of it?
And while John Wick Lady was telling Sorrenta stories that soon the saboteurs will be caught,
We have the make and model of the van. We'll spot them.
Artemis uses Harry Potter's invisibility cloak and sneaks into Sorrenta's office, in which there is no security and even no receptionist. And there is no biometric security in a place where a personal game terminal is installed, so she quickly finds the shield manual and memorizes the spell. And she is also not smart enough to go through Sorrenta's inventory and send some valuable items to her friends, which would be useful in a battle. Meanwhile, Wade launches a stream and raises an army by giving a speech.
For the Oasis.
For Febre.
For Narnia!
For Charles.
For the Alliance!
To the sword! For a soul.
And since nobody wants to see the sportswear advertising in Oasis with the models from the nearest McDonald's and trailers of the new remakes, half of the Oasis immediately joins the army. Artemis disables the shield and a huge battle begins, which could have been avoided if Sorrenta had been keeping the password not on a piece of paper but in his mind. And of course, why would Sorrenta invest into his army and buy them any equipment? Instead of that, his people are running around without any armor and with the cheapest guns. And they don't even have any combat skills, because they simply run into the crowd, instead of organizing a defense line.
How the fuck did you get this job?
And after hearing sounds of crashing skulls, Artemis immediately joins the battle without even removing the enemy's skin, so that someone from her side would shoot her. And I don't know what they would do if they didn't have Harry Potter's luck potion, because Artemis jumps from an exploding robot right into Wade's moving car. Meanwhile, Sorrenta decided to fight alongside his team as a real leader. And if Wade or his friends had taken all valuable loot from Sorrenta's inventory while they had an opportunity earlier, then now they wouldn't have to deal with such a massive problem. And since Blade's daughter's Iron Giant isn't good enough to win against Godzilla, and Wade doesn't have any heavy machinery at all, they had to call landing troops, which saves the main characters, but immediately after that demonstrates how lame it is. He pulled out a lightsaber just to use it as a torch, while trying to defeat Godzilla Jackie Chan style, when this robot's avatar is available only for 1 minute. And when he has only 5 seconds left, he finally realizes that it's time to use the sword. But because of showing off his kung fu, he runs out of time and turns into a pile of shit. Meanwhile, Blade's daughter brought Artemis right to Godzilla's face, and apparently she had watched Save Private Ryan.
Hey! Outside! Get aboard! Get a grenade in there!
Meanwhile, Wade and Shaw are running to the castle, not caring about any possible traps or snipers. They are quite lucky that the professional gangster not only cannot shoot straight, but also blows up the bridge before the main characters step on it, when he could have killed them both in 1 moment. And after that, he began to shoot off the giant's fingers and revealed his position, when he could have waited for the guys to cross the bridge and easily shoot them. And as a result, he loses his girlfriend, because he doesn't even know that while reloading a weapon, it's better to take cover. And as soon as the guys enter the castle, they face dozens of enemies, and Wade realizes that he needs Artemis alive, so that later he could get
something valuable
from her in real life.
But I can't let you get hurt in the real world.
So he kicks her from the server, and she freely leaves the building, and they find her in a minute. Well, I guess Sorrento is a billionaire because he saves a lot, mainly on security of his buildings and offices, especially when a very important battle is going on, so the employees shouldn't be allowed to leave the workplace. And when even John Wick wouldn't be able to survive under such intense gunfire, Wade somehow manages to shoot back, and even stands up and throws a grenade. Why didn't Sorrento's people have any grenades?
I don't give a f about all of that.
And after that, Wade and Shaw approach the game terminal, and of course there was only one player there, who immediately loses by himself. And since the guy lost even after winning the game, Wade realizes,
well, there's a secret in adventure, and you don't find it by winning. You find it by wandering around in a dark room, until you get to the invisible dot.
And very untimely, like a sneeze during diarrhea, Sorrento and the gangster show up, and begin to threaten Wade with cancelling all the players on the map, if he doesn't tell them how to get the final key. Instead of telling Wade that the car they are driving is already rigged with explosives, and if he doesn't yield, he will join his aunt. And the easiest way would be just killing Wade and Shaw, and sending his employees to look for the Easter egg again. But Sorrento didn't even take any weapon, because he didn't think that a guy like Wade would never give up $500 billion. And I wonder, how can Wade do such Bruce Lee tricks and jump 5 meters into the air, while being in a small van and not even having a treadmill? And how can he do such tricks when in real life he moves and jumps like a bag of shit? But Sorrento manages to use the cancelling bomb and makes all the players to take a 5-minute break, and it doesn't make any sense, because Wade would be able to join the game later and go to the castle again. But luckily he has an extra life coin as a gift from Alfred, so he can continue playing. And meanwhile, in real life, John Wick lady finds the van, and Sorrento personally goes to commit a murder, when they could have just planted an explosive using a drone and made a firework. But they decided to just ram the van, and John Wick lady also thought that it's better to jump into the van where the guys can beat her up, instead of just shooting from a distance. Apparently she doesn't know that a bullet would easily go through the van's thin metal walls, and because of her stupidity, she goes to wipe the concrete with her face. And meanwhile, Wade finally passes the secret level, gets the final key, and passes the geek test by not signing the acquisition papers, not to look like he cares only about money.
Oh, good. I just needed to be sure.
He meets Holiday's artificial intelligence and finally gets the
golden egg.
Sorrento gets arrested, but only for a gun threat, so the next day his lawyers would get him out of jail. And Wade, after becoming the head of the Oasis, passes his first law.
We close the Oasis on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I know it sounds like a weird move, but people need to spend more time in the real world.
Of course, it is same as always. The guy brainwashed the crowd, overthrew the dictator, became one himself, and began to impose the restrictive rules, so that instead of enjoying Oasis, people from the slums would stay at home and play with cockroaches. Wade says that people should enjoy real life. Of course, it's easy to enjoy when you have $500 billion on your bank account.
Oh, yeah.
And his favorite food was Hot Pockets. Favorite restaurant was Chuck E. Cheese. Song was Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. Video was Take On Me by a Hop.
You need to find yourself a girl, mate.